Good evening and welcome to the Bellevue City Council meeting for Monday, January 25th, 2016. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please rise. This will also be followed, if you could remain standing, by Pastor Steve Holdaway, Spring Life Spring Church, 13904 South 36th, for the invocation following the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for this privilege of praying, and we really thank God for your service, all of you. You're doing the right thing, and we want to support you and let you know you're being prayed for, and we just appreciate you. I'd like to voice a prayer in agreement with one of our former presidents, Dwight D. Eisenhower. So let's pray together. Almighty God, as we stand here at this moment, we beseech you that you will make full and complete our dedication to the service of the people in our land, I would say in this city, and our fellow citizens everywhere. Give us, we pray, the power to discern clearly right from wrong and allow all our works and actions to be governed thereby and by the laws of this land. Especially, Lord, we pray that our concern shall be for all the people, regardless of station, race, or calling. May cooperation be permitted and by the mutual aim of those who, under the concept of our laws, hold even to differing political beliefs, so that all may work for the good of our beloved country and for thy glory. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Holdaway. Appreciate it. Item number 2, Sabrina, please call roll.
Mr. Carmichael.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Preister. Mr. Modry.
Here.
Mrs. Blood.
I'd like to add that Councilman Don Preister is out of town, but he is with us on Skype. And also Councilwoman Blood is ill and is unable to attend due to doctor's orders. Item 2A, this meeting will be conducted according to the Open Meetings Act, posted in the entry to the council chambers. Item 3, approval of minutes and advisory committee reports. 3A, approval of agenda. Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. I motion to approve the agenda.
Second by Mr. Modry. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 3B, approval of consent agenda. Mr. Carmichael.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Modry. Any discussion? Mr. Cook.
I'd like to remove 12B, so we can have discussion on it.
Any other questions, concerns? Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 3C is under consent. Item 4 is under consent. Item 5, special presentation. 5A, proclamation, February 6, 2016, as Fontenelle Forest Volunteer Appreciation Day. I think Mr. Preister is here. Now come down. Proclamation, whereas hundreds of volunteers across the state have generously given of their time and talent during 2015 to further the mission and vision of Fontenelle Forest. And whereas the capacity of Fontenelle Forest has been expanded and improved by volunteers, especially in the areas of environmental stewardship, community and educational programming, and fundraising efforts. And whereas volunteers serve and address unmet needs as members of Raptor Relay, Raptor Recovery, as teacher naturalist, teen naturalist trainees, bluebird monitors, land stewards, apple pie bakers, bird banding volunteers, Fontenelle Forest Guild members on the board of directors, and in countless other ways. And whereas the men and women and young adults inspire, current and future generations to care for the natural world. Therefore, the City of Bellevue wishes to recognize the dedication, effort, contributions of the volunteers who continually better their community to help Fontenelle Forest strive to be the area's premier nature center. Therefore, I, Mayor Rita Sanders, do hereby declare February 6, 2016 as Fontenelle Forest Volunteer Appreciation Day in Bellevue, and thank the staff and volunteers for all they do.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll get a quick picture, and then I'll let you say a few words here.
I'd like to thank Mayor Sanders and the council for taking a minute out of your schedule to draw this up. It means a great deal to the forest. The majority of our volunteers are Bellevue residents, if not Sarpy residents. So this means a great deal to them as well as us as a staff. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preister. Item 5B, presentation on the Old Town Vision Plan, Planning Director Chris Shuchuk.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Some time ago, the Planning Department was tasked with coming up with what we at that time called a redevelopment plan for the city, Old Town area, where the city currently occupies space, this building and other buildings. Truly a redevelopment plan, by definition, is a more specific plan as to what will actually be built in the area. So what we have termed this is a vision plan for the Old Town area. There are a number of things that we are looking at here. Access improvements, land use, street improvements, public spaces, as well as design standards, and some implementation steps that we can take initially as a city. Old Town is really a much larger area than just where we are tonight. Extends from the Missouri River down to the base, the north line of the base, approximately Lincoln Road on the west, and then up toward the cemetery on the north. We have concentrated on an Old Town core area for this plan. Initially, it was just the 4 blocks, where City Hall is, and across the street, these 4 blocks here. That was the initial focus of the plan. We have expanded that a little bit to include the half block to the west, and then a half block on the north and south side of Mission Street to the east. This is the entrance from the west at where Lincoln Road turns onto Mission. We would like to see, the plan envisions this area as being improved with a through movement from Lincoln onto Mission, and then a T up Lincoln from the base there. The majority of movements are this movement, Mission to Lincoln. This would facilitate an improved traffic flow for the area. As I know, other access points, the other main access points are 2 of them, Franklin and the Missouri River Bridge. We didn't envision any additional improvements for that area. But further from the east and the south, we would like to see traffic coming off Hancock Street, and a new access point coming from the south and the new Missouri River Bridge. This diagram is just completely conceptual, something coming from the south up to Mission Avenue. No route has been designated. It's, again, totally conceptual, something that could happen in the future as the development occurs to the south. It also would facilitate an expanded runway if that ever happened, as well as a movement of the railroad tracks if that ever happened as well. Land use for the current core area is, there are a number of different land uses, civic uses, of course, the city offices here, the fire station, and the building next door. And then we also own the former Criminal Investigations Bureau building on the corner of Franklin and Mission. Some residential on 23rd Avenue, and then the rest is commercial type uses, a variety of different types of that. In the future, we'd like to see expansion of both residential and the commercial uses, leaving the civic use of the fire station in the Old Town area, expanding residential uses on the south side of the block across the street on 23rd Avenue, and then a mixture of commercial, retail, and residential uses along the main Mission Avenue corridor. Just as an example of a type of use that could go on Mission, this is a mixed-use building, retail and office uses. This is an example that's up in Exarban Village right now. This is a mixture of residential on the upper floors and commercial on the lower floors, or the lower floor of the street level. That could either be retail or office type uses. As far as residential uses, a number of different types could be done. These are attached single-family homes, similar to what's being built in some places in Omaha and redevelopment areas in Omaha, or row houses type buildings or apartments that are that face the street. One of the design elements of this and this type of land use for residential, these buildings are not set back terribly far from the street, but the elevated front porch on both of these does provide a separation from the street and the sidewalk for the residents to the pedestrian or vehicular traffic. And the same item here. See the steps up to the front door. As far as changes to Mission Avenue itself, currently there's 60 feet of pavement on Mission Avenue. We're not envisioning changing that pavement or widening it, but there are different ways it can be configured to accommodate parking and traffic, as well as enhancements to the street profile. This is one of the ones that we have preferred here. It does include angled parking and a lane of traffic in each direction, with 20 feet of right-of-way on either side of the pavement. That would allow for outdoor areas, either little courtyards, dining areas, as well as pedestrian movement areas and landscaping. I'll have another example of that in a moment or two. One of the other street profiles we looked at, this one has a lane of traffic in each direction, a center turn lane, a bicycle lane, and then parallel parking. Our preferred alternative is the other one, and we would move the bicycle lane off of Mission Avenue, designate a lane on one of the side streets. That will help with the parallel or the angled parking where people can't see, maybe not be able to see a bicycle lane. And I know that this doesn't truly fit the complete street idea, but the idea we have is a network, a complete network for vehicular traffic on the street, and expanding the network would be the bicycle lane on an adjacent street, so that all forms of movement, vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle are accommodated for. One of the main aspects of this plan is to close Jefferson Street for a half block north and south of Mission, turn it into a public space that can be used for a variety of things. This diagram also shows the street the nodes or the little peninsulas at the end of each block or mid-block as well that can also be used for landscaping just to break up the block. Again, Jefferson Street could be used for a number of things. These are just two examples of things that other places use. Having decorative pavement or markings when it's not used for a festival, outdoor event, or anything like that. And then this is an example of the sidewalk that I mentioned earlier. We can have plantings and landscaping adjacent to the street, a wide enough area for pedestrian movement, and also an area that accommodates either outdoor seating, dining. You see one up there, looks like a little landing for another business. And we did pick 20 feet width for this type of design. Here's another one that really isn't wide enough. It's only about 14 feet wide. It really lacks landscaping space, and the pedestrian and the seating areas that kind of encroach into where pedestrian movement might be. So again, a wider 20-foot is preferred. Incorporating Green Street principles into the plan, we can do that with the landscaped areas, having the street drainage drain into these landscaped areas. It not only controls runoff and could prevent some flooding, but also filters the water and improves water quality as it drains into the storm sewer and then into the river. Design standards, we would like obviously to have a nice aesthetically pleasing development on Mission Avenue. We think that our current design standards will suffice to bring those items here. We will be looking at some additional standards and setbacks that we can use to create courtyards and minimum and maximum setbacks, so we don't have, especially maximum setbacks, so we don't have things sitting away from the street or people trying to park or wanting to park fronting Mission Avenue. And again, this is similar to what our current design standards have, changes in elevation in the front plane of the building and different building materials. Implementation is not going to be easy or quick with this plan. Obviously, this is something we want to show the potential purchasers of the property when we do put it up for sale. Types of things we do want to have here. The idea is not to discourage anybody. Certainly, if somebody came in with a single-user building, a grocery store is always talked about, so I'll throw that out there. We wouldn't prohibit that. We just want to make sure it fits in with the design and the plan of the area, and to serve the residents of Old Town and Bellevue area. We're not looking at creating an old market area in Bellevue, just a commercial residential area to, a commercial area to serve the residents of Old Town, and then also the mixed uses to bring more residents into Old Town to help support those businesses. Some of the things that the city can do to, I'll say, kickstart the projects, we can refine and design the transportation improvements, include them in future capital improvement plans. Some of the other improvements will be joint projects, public-private partnerships, or the use of tax increment financing to accomplish those. We can also amend our zoning ordinance to put into place an overlay district for any specific details we want to have for the Old Town area, adopt a tax increment financing policy, letting people know that if they want to use TIF, that they need to comply with the plan or the elements of the plan. So we do have a significant area of the Old Town, and actually all this area that we were talking about has already been declared as blighted and substandard. So the use of TIF is a possibility. One of the biggest problems, as you know, is while the city owns many of the properties on the north side of the street, the south side is under a variety of ownership. A lot of them, or a number of them, are out-of-town owners. So we're looking at, as the city sells these properties, it's redeveloped, that will also help to kickstart the south side of the street as well. And then again, here's as I mentioned, the blighted and substandard area. Those areas in blue have already been declared as blighted and substandard. That was the end of what we have here tonight, or what I have here for you tonight. I'd certainly try to answer any questions for you. Again, this is just I'll say maybe more than just a guideline for what we'd like in the area, but something to work with the developers as they come forward with the city property or others' properties, and do something to redevelop the Old Town area.
Bill in here to turn the lights on and turn off the...
The overhead projector, Chris,
I'm sorry?
can we shut it off?
Oh,
Mr. Cook, do you have a question?
I just have a question and a comment. Chris, I was in contact with the party that asked a question about this plan as far as the streets. You mentioned the preferred design of Mission Street would be down to a 2-lane, one lane for each direction. And they asked me if the road would be rated. And I asked them to explain that. They said, would there be a weight limit on it? Would it prevent trucks of a certain weight of being able to go down that road? Is that anything they don't want that to happen?
they don't want trucks, or they don't want it rated so they can.
They don't want it to be rated. They want trucks semis to be able to go down that road. And so I told them I would ask the question. Has there been any discussion, or is a thought down the road that maybe there would be restrictions on weight or type of vehicles coming down Mission Street, and in particular, the area that we're addressing here in our plan?
We didn't specifically address that. Certainly with the redevelopment, we would like it to be, more pedestrian friendly. Obviously, this is being a significant route to the Bellevue Bridge, and then to other things that are happening over in Iowa, the Google Place, the other things that are over there at 370 and I-29. There's going to be truck traffic that's going to want to come down here.
Right, and that was, some of the things you mentioned was part of his concern, the bridge, and et cetera, the movement of what's going on over in Council Bluffs with some development and stuff too. The second thing is parking. Some of their buildings look like they're 3, 4, and 5 stories high potentially. And if you're going to start putting people in apartments and stuff like that, if there's not on-site parking, that pushes them out. And, we wouldn't want all the parking taken by residents, preventing people that want to come down and walk and do business and eat at a restaurant, finding it difficult to find a place to park. Has that been addressed as far as parking?
As individual projects come through, we can look at how much traffic or how many residents they might attract, and look at ways to keep them from taking all the on-street parking. The BGM district, which is the zoning for this area, does not have a parking requirement at this time. Obviously, we'd want something that's going to generate a lot of vehicles, an apartment complex, whatever, to have parking, again, so they're not taking up spaces that can be used for businesses. There are a number of different ways cities address those things, as far as either parking permits or limiting the number of hours somebody can be on the street. Hopefully, especially with the attached single family, parking can be accessed off the alley for those types of uses as well. And there may be other places in the Old Town area where parking can be provided as well.
And it just, I was asked, so I told him I would ask those questions. Thank you.
Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, thanks for the work you've put into this so far. I know this is a very big project and vision that the city's trying to encompass and look for the redevelopment that takes place down here. I have a couple of questions with respect to the south side of the road, south side of Mission Street. Have the owners of those buildings been brought into the discussions on what's transpiring and what the vision is, and have they been afforded the opportunity for input into what you've done?
We've had conversations with some of them. Some of them have been into our office and talked to us about the plan and have been supportive of what we're doing. We did not do what we would do, I'll say on a zoning change and send out a letter saying this is what we've got. I was told, and at one point in time when we were initially discussing this project, about having public meetings, and was told we don't need public meetings on the plan. So, but I know that there are people, business owners and tenants there that are aware of the plan. There's certainly no intention, as far as I'm aware of, and I think I can speak for what the council has in the past done, no intent of the city using eminent domain or anything like that to take properties and, force somebody to redevelop the property. So it'll be something as business, and either somebody who acquires it all privately on the south side, or individuals as they come in and want to redevelop their properties or rehab them even. We would talk to them about the plan. Obviously, we can't, some of these things we can't force on people. We can implement some things via zoning and design standards, but and design standards only kick in, at least now, when there's a change in the footprint of the building and expansion. So some of this, a lot of this, especially on the south side with current owners, is going to be a voluntary participation, but we would hope that as things develop on the north side and people see the improvements on the north side, they'll want to also improve the south side. Improvements hopefully lead to higher rents for them, and they're able to make those improvements, kind of a circular pattern there.
From my perspective, I certainly hope as a city and as private business owners, we walk hand in hand down that aisle, because this is going to be a tremendously positive thing for not only Old Town Bellevue, but for Bellevue in general. And there's going to be significant improvement that's going to occur on the north side. Those on the south side may need some help. So as a council, I think we really do need to, in the vision statement and moving forward with this, incorporate those owners and our plan into helping bring forth the beauty that the design standards and the plan that Chris is coming up with, and eventually the builders on the north side are going to provide for the citizens of Bellevue. I like your plan, Chris, and I appreciate what you've done for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Berlowitz.
Yeah, I guess the thing I would emphasize, and it's pretty obvious, again, it is a vision plan, and therefore a lot of what's been presented is not set in granite, but it gives us a vision within which to work. In terms of the public on the south side, some of the business owners and tenants being aware of it, I know we did have Chris give us along the way some status reports, and it has been through the Planning Commission and reviewed, and for I don't know whether public comment or input was allowed at that. I think it was. And so it has been vetted to a certain point, but again, as we move forward with on the north side and going out, probably out for proposals in the near future, and looking at what developers may have or what we may want in concert with what developers may want to propose, I think that will allow for a broader conversation, because the council will need to discuss that in order to determine exactly what we're going to do in the way of redevelopment. I'm sure there'll be some opportunities at that point along the way as you put things more in place for obviously some public input. But I do agree, Steve, there does need to be obviously some linkage with the people on the south side. But at least if you agree that it's a good vision plan, it will allow us to move forward. Again, a lot of what's been proposed are suggestions, but clearly this gives us a tentative roadmap.
Mr. Modry?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree. South side businesses will have to be very involved. I've been traveling down to Topeka, Kansas for the last almost 4 years. They underwent a redevelopment effort in their downtown area with their streets, their parking, and quite an effort, taking quite a long period of time, putting a lot of the existing businesses out of business because of the reduced traffic, just the disruption of what's going on and such. So we need to be aware that current business owners there may not be the business owners that end up there after it's done, just because of the disruption that's going to take place. It's something we need to really consider.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. Chris, is this something that goes to the Planning Commission to get public input?
It's already been to the Planning Commission.
Oh. Are we, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council? See none. Thank you, Mr. Shuchek, for that vision plan. Item 6, liquor license, none. Item 7, ordinance for adoption, third reading. 7A, ordinance 3834. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3834. An ordinance to annex to the city of Bellevue, Sarpy County, Nebraska, certain lands, lots, and real estate lying within the below described boundaries and designating an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Shuchek, would you like to make a statement?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. In accordance with subsection 7 of section 16-130 of the state statutes, I'd like to note for the record that we did notify utilities serving this area to be annexed. It is a requirement of the annexation ordinance that we notify utilities serving this area, and it's also a requirement that it be noted in the record before a vote is taken. So I'm making that statement that the requirements of this section have been made.
Thank you. What are the wishes of the council? Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 3834.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carmichael. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 7B, ordinance 3835. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3835. An ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619 by changing the zone classification of land located at or about 36th Street and Sheridan Road, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance number 3835.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 7B1, approval of small plat subdivision for plat lots 1 through 3, LGB plat 1. We need a separate vote. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion, we approve the small subdivision plot for lots 1 through 3, LBGB plat 1.
Second.
Second by Mr. Modry. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. 3C, ordinance 3836. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3836, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619 by changing the zone classification of land located at or about Tregaron Drive and Pilgrim Drive, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Yeah, we just did. Yes, Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor, for recognizing me. I have been discussing discussing from some distance, unfortunately not in town, with some of the neighbors and included some information to Celebrity Homes on a possible resolution of some of the concerns for the wildlife habitat. Unfortunately, a number of those neighbors have been out of town or unavailable also.
Mr. Councilman Preister, Councilman Preister,
Discuss it. So if this could be carried over for 2 weeks, it would allow for that time. Because it's winter, I don't think any actual development is going to be delayed. I don't know that for certain. But I would at least like to try and put some effort into coming up with an agreement that's agreeable to the residents as well as to this wonderful development that Celebrity is doing and that I believe everybody would like to see. Thank you.
Councilman Preister, you're jumping the gun a little bit. We're on the Celebrity subdivision, which is right before the one that you're referring to.
My apologies.
What are the wishes of the council on ordinance 3836? Mr. Carmichael.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Hanson, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. We also need a vote on item 7C1, approval of preliminary plat lots 1 through 144, outlots A through F, Fairview South. Mr. Carmichael.
For approval of the preliminary plat for lots 1 through 144 of outlots A through F, Fairview South 2.
Mr. Hanson?
Second.
Thank you. Trying to make sure we keep up with Sabrina. Thank you. Any discussion? See none, please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 7D, ordinance 3837. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3837, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619 by changing the zone classification of land located at or about 43rd Street and Capehart Road, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 3837.
Need a second? Mr.
Second.
Hanson? Any discussion?
Mayor?
Mr. Preister?
Thank you. It appears that everybody really does want this to go through and to not be delayed. I'm in no position to get in the way of that. I just don't see that there's a problem waiting only 2 weeks. And if something can be done, fine. If not, there's no impediment. There's nothing standing in the way. And it's in no disrespect to the developer. It's just an effort to do something that I think is in the best interest of the near residents in Quail Creek, Lakewood Villages, and the entire city. But it's out of my hands at this point other than to plead for delaying it for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you, Mayor. This may get long. I'd like to speak to the Quail Creek residents first that are here and maybe watching on TV as we go through this. This has been going on for about 2 years. And the 4 of us that are present today, we're not involved in any vote on this wildlife corridor or buffer or easement or whatever you want to call it. This came up in the second reading. And I know that all 4 of us did an awful lot of research over the last 2 weeks trying to understand exactly what happened and what the council tried to do in 2012 with respect to this buffer or easement or conservatory. It's very confusing when you read the minutes, and I've talked to council several times during those 2 weeks. I've talked to other city attorneys that I'm involved with, and it never got any clearer. The one thing that became very clear to me towards the end of this was that this easement or corridor or whatever we call it was not filed on the deed of the property. The developer did everything in his power due diligence-wise to perform his duties as a potential buyer, made an offer. We are in the process of selling that property to him, and I just, for the life of me, I cannot withhold a potential $100 million development that the city of Bellevue will greatly benefit from for an easement or a conservatory that will benefit the residents of Quail Creek. As a councilman, I apologize to you in the Quail Creek subdivision because you thought you had a 100-foot easement. And the way I read what was passed and approved by this council in 2012, I believe that was the intent, but that's not what was filed. And the legalities of the overall development and what's in the best interest of the city of Bellevue lead me to make the motion to approve this, and that's how I will vote.
Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just make a couple comments too. This has been a real difficult decision for me personally. I received information showing that Quail Creek had 12 outlots totaling 40 acres. That's a lot of green space. The city of Bellevue is probably leaving over 70 acres, if you would look at all the creeks and the trees and everything, of potential property there that would be a parkland someday, at least some green space, open space. So we sit and go down this process, and we look at a lot of Quail Creek residents through emails, letters, showing up at our meetings and wanting this space. And we're looking at, maybe 3 or 4 acres. And I sit there and look at 40 acres, maybe 70 more acres of green space, not only within your neighborhood, but outside of your neighborhood, connected to your neighborhood. I think the owner here, the developer, Denny, has been very kind and polite by meeting with you. The hang-up for me is who's going to own this property and who's going to maintain it. And I don't have an answer for that. So it's a very tough decision. I'm going to have to vote with my heart of what I think is best for the city. I do truly want to thank everybody that has came to this podium and talked either for or against, and also the letters, the emails. A lot of people put a lot of effort into this. But I also have to look at what's best for the city. Thank you.
Are there any other discussion points? See none? Please vote.
All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 7D1, approval of preliminary plat lots for 1 through 292 and outlots B through D Liberty. Mr. Carmichael.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion for approval of the preliminary plat for lots 1 through 292 and outlots B and D Liberty.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hanson. Any discussion? See none, please vote. We have everyone?
I need a vote for Mr. Hanson. All voted yes.
Thank you. Item 8, ordinance for public hearing, second reading. 8A, ordinance 3838. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3838, an ordinance to amend Section 2-30 of the Bellevue Municipal Code pertaining to the City Council's order of business to repeal such section as heretofore existing and to provide for the effective date of this ordinance.
I'll now open for public hearing on this item, ordinance number 3838. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time.
Chuck Frederick, 1511 Madison Street. I don't know what the ordinance, what the change is going to be, and I believe there's probably a whole bunch of people behind me that don't know what that change is going to be too. And the only thing I would like to see done is that when you have this type of situation, you have the public input first, and then you discuss it. It would be much better for the public, for the council to discuss the pros and cons, and then give the people here in our audience to give a chance to respond to that. This way, you're gonna talk about something, and then after you get all through talking, nobody can respond to you. I think it's backwards, so I don't know if this ordinance changes that or not, but that's the way it should be, I believe. That way you'll get a better response from everybody rather than have the input first. Thank you.
Are there others? Sabrina?
I was just gonna say that it's merely a cleanup, basically, because so it matches how the agenda is formed, just to make it concise, taking out things that are no longer talked about. It's on the table, you know, you can look at it, and on the website,
I got it right.
so.
I would still think that would be a good way of doing it from now on. Have the public input after they discuss it.
Mr. Berlowitz?
Yeah, as the city clerk indicated, it is on the table. There's a red line version. It shows exactly what's being added and deleted. So that way, it's what's called legislative format. And so it should be pretty clear as to what the changes are. Again, it's to bring it up in line with the way we've been conducting business.
I don't need to say anything. Mr. Berlowitz and Sabrina both said what I was just going to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who would like to speak on this? See none, I'll close the public hearing. The third reading would be on February the 8th. Item 8, yes, Mr. Preister.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to underscore, I think Mr. Frederick is making a very good point. It is very helpful for the public to know the discussion and to have the information. I think we can do that on our own. It has not much to do with the cleanup on the ordinance, but just as a matter of practice and courtesy to the public, it does give them more information for their comments when they know in advance from any discussion of the council when we have it. We may not always have it. It may be pretty clear and straightforward, but when we can, I think it is good practice, and I certainly will keep that in mind and try to do it whenever possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preister. Mr. Sullivan.
This ordinance is on second reading. It hasn't changed from the first reading, so over 2 weeks ago, it has been on our agenda. Prior to 2 weeks ago, it was in our agenda packets, which would have gone out Thursday or Friday. Your agenda packets are also available to the public on our internet site. So the content of this ordinance has been available for public view probably for 15 to 18 days now.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. 8B, ordinance 3839. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3839. An ordinance declaring the necessity, expediency, and propriety of vacating the platting of Lot 2, Daniels Farm Addition, Sarpy County, Nebraska, not heretofore vacated, repealing all ordinances and all parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and designating an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
Again, this is just a title issue in which when you sell property, which is the intention here with the purchase by Liberty, that you can't just break a lot in half, even though it's a fairly significantly large lot. So essentially all we're doing is vacating it back to its old, what would be called a meets and bounds description. That allows us to cut it up in other pieces as long as the piece that remains as well as the piece that is sold exceeds 10 acres in size, and that would occur by vacating Lot 2. Finally, even though we do have a request to waive the third reading and vote tonight, that is not going to be able to be done because it requires 5 votes, and we only have 4 councilmen tonight.
Thank you, but we'll open for public hearing this evening on ordinance 3839. Anyone wishing to speak on this ordinance, please do so at this time. See none. The third and final reading will be February the 8th. Item 8C, ordinance 3840. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3840. An ordinance to amend section 5.28, ordinance number 3619, Bellevue zoning ordinance relating to automobile sales, to repeal such section as heretofore existing, to provide an effective date of the ordinance, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Thank you. We'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 3840, please do so at this time. I see none. We'll close the public hearing. The third and final reading will be February the 8th. 8D, ordinance number 3841. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3841, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619, by changing the zone classification of land located at 12701 South 28th Avenue, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 3841, please do so at this time. See none. I'll close the public hearing. The third and final reading will be February the 8th. 8E, ordinance 3842. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3842, an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, as provided for by Article 3 of ordinance number 3619, by changing the zone classification of land located at 12709 South 28th Avenue, more particularly described in Section 1 of the ordinance, and to provide an effective date.
Thank you. I'll now open for public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please do so at this time. See none. I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike Christensen, is he still here? I just want to make a comment. We got an email about this. Mr. Shannon's here, that from someone that's concerned of some of the work that has occurred at that site. They're referring to the drive on the south end of the building, pushing more water into the street. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying is that it came from a citizen, more water, about how water's coming out on the street, concerned about freezing, was it done right? And also just, I know there's been some improvements on some of the wall. They addressed that. I think those have been made, and then they complained about the weeds. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up is that just to make sure that as far as the work that has been done, is that all okay, and for us to move forward and then vote on this in 2 weeks.
There was a permit for portion of the wall. I think there was some additional work that was done without benefit of a permit. We did put some stop work orders up last week, so we'll be meeting with Mr. Shannon to discuss those.
And Mr. Shannon, this is, thank you for coming out there. I believe you're a recent owner of that place. You're looking at making some improvements. I support it. It's just I got an email. I think we all got an email, and I was just going to bring that up to our attention before we move forward and voted on it in 2 weeks. So thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council? I've closed the public hearing. Can I respond? You bet. Come on, please come forward.
Pat Shannon, 3417 East Dutchman Circle, Bellevue. Not aware of the issue, but it's not germane to what we're discussing here either. So the only thing before you right now is we're trying to change the zoning because this is a car wash, has been a car wash for 30 years, and it's not zoned to be a car wash. So we're just correcting the zoning. So, yeah. City attorney provided it to me. We'll address it tomorrow. We'll meet with the city. We'll take care of it. But yeah, it's not related to what we're doing here.
I agree. Thank you for doing business in Bellevue.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. Mr. Shuchuk? Okay. The third and final reading will be on February the 8th. Item number 9, ordinance for introduction, first reading. Ordinance number 3843. Sabrina, please read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3843, an ordinance to amend the salary and compensation of the mayor and city council of the city of Bellevue, Nebraska, to repeal ordinance number 3560 and to declare an effective date.
Thank you. And the second reading and public hearing will also be on February the 8th. Item 10, public hearing on matters other than ordinance. 10A, show cause hearing on the proposed condemnation of the structure located at 12814 South 9th Street.
Good evening, everyone. Let me first start off by saying the property located at 12814 South 9th Street has been a problem property on and off for the past 15 years. 15 years ago, there was an attempt to bring it back into minimum code compliance. Since that time, the property has just continued to deteriorate to the point to where we're at today. Several of the apartments are basically unsanitary and have several life safety issues. I have some footage here that I'd like to show you that's pretty much self-explanatory, and then I'll take any questions from there.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Are there any questions? Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, the property changed hands about how long ago?
The transaction took place, according to Sarpy County, at the beginning of October.
Of
Or
this
the-
year?
Correct.
And was the new owner made aware of obviously he's aware of the condition of the building, but
The
of
building
the
was-
correction orders that were issued by your department?
Yeah, the building was placarded as unfit prior to the purchase of the property. After the purchase of the property, they started some work without benefit of a permit. We put a stop work on it. We notified them of the deficiencies and met with them, and it was my understanding that they were to come back with a full set of plans within 30 days, and that occurred at the beginning of November.
Almost 3 months ago.
Correct.
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you too. All right, Mike, thanks.
I'll go ahead and open for public hearing on this at this time. If you would like to speak, please do so.
I guess my name is Ashley Kuhn, 105 North 31st Avenue in Omaha. We purchased the property on October 30th, 2015. We were approached by a bank that had the property in foreclosure, and they were looking for someone to take it off their hands, which is what we did. I first went into the building on November 1st, obviously seeing that the building is not in good condition. We have initiated a structural engineer to ensure that the building is safe, and he's also going to do a permit set for us. I'm expecting that this week, but I would say within the next 30 days, we'll have a permit set as well as ready to start work on the building.
Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you, Mayor. Have you made Mr. Christensen aware of that?
We have been in communication with Mr. Christensen, yes.
Have you been contacted by anybody, Mike, on this property?
Not since November. Not since the meeting we had in November. Haven't heard anything.
But that meeting was with that structural engineer,
It was with
from
the-
my understanding.
an
I wasn't in
ar-
that
an
meeting, and I
architect.
apologize.
An architect, yes.
And that's the same structural engineer that's doing the review on the building right now, and should be done with it this week.
An architect or a structural engineer?
He has both components within his company.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Sullivan?
Is the building occupied at all?
No.
It is not.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, give us some timelines of what you predict. I don't know, I'm sorry, I didn't remember your name or your position, but, with the company, but are you, I mean, we get a memo, says last communication was November 30th.
Mhm.
You know, so
Of course, and I've kind of been tugged in and out, where finally this project has landed with me and will be with me through.
are you a person that makes the decisions?
Yes, and that's why it's landed back with me. So the project will stay with me until it is completed. The big component is gonna be, there's a lot of, things that are covered with plywood, is what I would guess to say. So we're gonna need to get in there and rip those things down to even see what's going on underneath there. As far as the structural engineer has said, so far, he thinks everything looks really good, no structural issues. We'll have to rebuild 3 or 4 stair towers. So, I mean, in my opinion, it would probably take 10 months for the building to be completely done, but I'm honestly hoping for 6.
Mr. Christensen, I mean, is there any guidance you could give us on your expectations or what you think, how things should move forward?
I mean, it's in violation of several city ordinances, you know, basically the cosmetics of the outside. I mean, there's so much rot on it, you're gonna have to pretty much strip it down to the bare shell and start over with that. The stair towers are non-compliant, the stairs are non-compliant. You've got mold issues going on in the apartments now, they're gonna have to be gutted once you gut them. Now you're getting into electrical and plumbing. I don't know that these plans are gonna be sufficient to make all these repairs.
And if we take action today, we're saying that something needs to at least start moving forward by the end of February. Would you agree with that, or?
Yes. Correct.
So what if between now and then, plans are presented to you, then how do we move forward?
We could bring it back before council at that point in time,
All right,
if they were sufficient enough to make the repairs.
thank you.
Mr. Carmichael?
correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, you cannot issue a permit now for any rehabilitation on that building since you brought it to the council.
That's correct. Actually, I need your approval to issue a permit from.
That's
the
correct.
board.
And Ashley, are you and your architect/engineer aware that you have a substantial cost you're going to incur both for handicapped accessibility, fire sprinkler systems for the building, the structural analysis alone? I hesitate to say that thing is structurally safe. I've been doing my job for a long time, and I know the condition of that building, and I know that at 15 years ago, it wasn't structurally safe. So seeing what Mr. Christensen has provided to us and knowing what costs you're going to have to incur over and above the costs of rehabilitation of this project probably are not going to make this thing financially feasible for you.
And that's understandable. I would be asked if we can be given the opportunity, being that we've only owned the property for roughly 90 days. So it would be, I would think, reasonable for us to be able to get the plans, see what your expectations are going to be, and allow for us to do that financial modeling to even see if that would make sense for us.
Thank you. I'll go ahead. The public hearing is still open. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time, please do so.
Steve Draper at 9807 South 24th Street. The one thing I heard that concerned me was when he mentioned toxic chemicals on site. And my question is, anybody asked the question, does the EPA need to get involved, being that there's toxic chemicals on site? Thank you.
Mr. Christensen, do you have a reply to that? Or Mr. Burks?
Go ahead, Larry. I don't have an answer to the toxic chemicals question, and maybe Pat and Mike would, but I do want to recall back to the Yazowski property on Chandler Road last year, or 2 years ago. We extended him, the council took action and extended him a period of time to meet the building requirements, and with that, you know, as a precedent, that may also be an option to consider at this point.
Are there others that would like to speak on this item? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. 10A1, we have a resolution, Resolution 2016-2, condemning the structure located at 12814 South 9th Street and ordering it to be torn down and debris removed